Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor,
And I'm Louisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
and we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
You see, we've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
So I was just listening. I've actually listened to multiple podcast episodes, which is really funny because this is kind of one of the ways that the universe brings topics to light for me, right? I'll listen to something or I'll read something for a different reason because whatever the headline is or whatever the title is, like that appeals to me. And then sort of there will be other topic that then keeps coming up like in different places. And so the topic that's been coming up is the new paradigm. And the whole idea, which I didn't really understand this before until I actually started listening to all of these things, that it relates to human design. So in this human design system, one of the things that I think his name's like Ra Aruhu or something, when he got this download of this whole system of human design, it was like these paradigms that kind of last a certain period of time. It's like the earth will be in this paradigm for this period of time, and then it will then shift to the next one. And when you hear people talking about this new paradigm and the way things are changing, so it's been a really long time, like hundreds of years or something. We've been in this paradigm of systems and putting things into place, right? We've seen the Industrial Revolution, like all the stuff, and we're putting all of these systems into place. But now, as we're getting closer, apparently the shift happens in 2027. And as we're getting closer to this new paradigm, we're seeing some of these broken systems start to really deteriorate or break or come to a head, kind of a thing. And I think what's interesting, and this is my take on it, because as soon as I heard about this, my wheels started spinning and I'm like, how do I see this? What do I see in this world that sort of like an indicator of this or could be related to this? And I think what I've seen is, so with COVID and everything, a lot of workplaces went back to this, or not back, shifted to essentially what amounted to more work-life balance for people, right? And the vast majority of people loved that. They loved that flexibility, working from home, getting to have more balance in their lives, which makes sense from the perspective that we're shifting into this place of the individual, right? And so we're realizing what is best for us as an individual and this like soul alignment that we think about and talk about a lot. So we're shifting into that paradigm. So it makes sense that everybody was like, oh, great, this is so much better. I love this. And now this is helping to put that focus on the individual, right? It kind of was a little catalyst for that. But then I think what's so interesting is that the systems that were in place and a lot of these workplaces and corporations were like, oh, no, we need people here. And we need to go back to this strict structure and we need to go back to the way that it was. And we need people in the office. And this is so important. Truly, the only thing I can see is for like rules' sake or something. They're just, yes, it's like there's no real logical reason behind any of these decisions that I've seen. I have not found anyone who's like, here's the data to show that it makes more sense for all of our people to be in all of these physical office buildings every day of the week. But it's so funny because I think it's almost when things are about to break, when things are kind of going down, there's those fighters. There are going to be these people or these institutions that are going to try to fight that change and try to go down fighting or whatever. And so I feel like that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this revolt against the shift and the change that is inevitably going to happen, but it's like last stand of no, things need to stay the same. We need to go to the way that it was. I feel like that's got to be the only real reason why this is happening, because truly you can't find any data behind it to show like, oh, it makes more sense for people to be in the office 5 days a week and to be present physically every day and to have these long ass commutes back and forth to work. Like that helps nobody. It doesn't help the employer.
At
It
all.
doesn't help
At
the
all.
employee.
At
So it
all.
makes no sense other
And
than like
it
it's this.
doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. And so, kind of to start where you started, it's funny because, as you know, we talk about all the time, I don't consume much, right? And now, with even less time, I haven't been hearing, like, I feel the shift. We know the shift is happening, right? We've had those conversations. We all see it, hear it, feel it. And so, one of the things that has happened for me, for those listening, I've gone back into the workplace. I've gone back into corporate America, back into the lion's den, right in the middle of the lion's den. And one of the things that when all of this started was like, how am I going to go back in the office? So, about 8 years, I haven't worked in an office, okay? So, I mean, I've been successful. I've been at corporate jobs since then, remotely, and gotten promoted. Obviously, working and doing my job and doing, so when I go back into this corporate environment, just to kind of go right along with what you were saying, which is crazy, it's like, why is this happening? Like for me, the way that I looked at it was like, why is this happening? Right? I had this miraculous spiritual awakening that woke me up to myself and made me realize that I wasn't loving myself enough, that I wasn't giving myself enough time and attention. And that was with a work from home job that had extreme flexibility, as in like, you come in whenever you come in and you do your work, you work your 8 hours, and then you go back into your other room and live your life, right? And I was like, why is this happening? Why do I have to go back? And why is the only job that's offering me, even though I've interviewed a gazillion great places, why is the only job that I'm getting right now this one that is in a physical office that at the time I thought was a 30-minute drive from home? That's what I thought. It was only 30-minute drive with really shitty pay, just full disclosure, right? I'm like, why is this happening? I have a master's degree. Why is this happening to me? And when I got there, the things that you were saying, as I started my training, which is on a laptop at my desk, okay?
You could not possibly do that at your house.
I'm like, why am I here? Because initially I thought, because a lot of law firms, when I left the legal field itself, of what feels like a million years ago, were still like, all of this stuff was just starting to come online. So not every court had e-filing.
Mhm.
So I thought, I was like, well, these people, this law firm is just stuck in the past. And that's why they're making me go in, because everything is still done on paper and so forth. No, everything is online. In fact, the training videos that I'm getting are from when COVID happened. They recorded the training when COVID happened, when they sent everyone to work from home and just continued their operations remotely.
That's the thing. Like every organization had to do it. They were forced
They
to, right?
did.
So we know it's possible.
We totally know it's possible. Everything's online. And so when I was crying about it, because I spent my whole first day crying there after it took me an hour to get in versus the 30 minutes that I thought it was going to take me to get in, I realized, I said I was prepared for this because I am ready to leave. I've only been there less than a week. I'm ready to leave, but I'm not leaving without making them aware of the fact that they are literally just making everyone have an extremely shitty quality of life for no good reason. There is not one good reason that I can find, because we're all professionals. We're all doing the same work that we would be doing in our homes. on a laptop sitting next to each other. And, like I shared with you earlier, it's 3 hours of my day that I lose. They make me take a 1 hour lunch. The office is in the middle of nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere right next to downtown Austin, basically. If I were to go into downtown Austin, I wouldn't have enough time to get back on time because of traffic. So I can't actually do anything. I'm stuck in a parking lot for an hour, or if I want to go sit in the conference room in the break room for an hour. And then it takes me an hour to get there and an hour to come back home. So those are 3 hours that I used to spend with my kids. And there's absolutely no reason. It's not like they don't have the systems. It's not that they don't have the knowledge. So what I realized for myself is I'm prepared. Like I was prepared for this. That's why my throat chakra and all of the work with just speaking my truth that I've been going through for the last year has happened, is because whether it's this law office or another law office, wherever I was going to go, this first step back into the corporate world is a step that was going to go like this for me, because I am part of the change makers. I am going to be the really shitty Glassdoor review, making them aware and making HR aware. There's absolutely no reason other than the man on top, the owner of the firm, wants control. Because then there's also these other really creepy things of like cameras all around. I can't remember last time I worked somewhere like that. I was like, oh my God, so I have no privacy. I'm already having no privacy because there's all these people around me. There's like another level of it, and it's control. And it's exactly what you said. It's the fear of change. It's the fear of not being in control. I built this, so I get to decide how it's run. Yes, you do. However, people also get to have, a decent work-life balance. Life is no longer, I spend 11 hours of my day working, essentially on my way there, my way back, and the 1 hour lunch that I can't be productive in. 11 hours of my day. You know what would actually happen at my old job where I did work from home is, even if I did work 11 hours, I still worked my life around those 11 hours, and it never felt like such a burden. And I was happy. It was a choice. It was a choice.
That's it. It truly doesn't make any sense. So essentially, I left corporate America almost a year ago when it was sort of tides were changing, right? And people were having to come back. It was like a slow transition. Everybody left, went home, worked from home during COVID. And then it was like, oh, well, it looks like this seems to work fine. Unless you absolutely need to be in person for something, like you can still be working from home. And I mean, at my organization, they literally were like, let's revamp the work from home policies. Let's re-look at all of this so that we can now have actual policies in place and things like that, so that it all makes sense and we can kind of put parameters around it so that everybody's all on the same page. And then it was like, oh, well, it turns out we actually need you all to be here at least 2 days a week. Okay, what's the reason? Oh, well, so-and-so leader has decided that they really would like for people to be in office at least 2 days a week. Okay. And then it was like, well, we're leaning toward at least 3 to 4 days a week, really. It just makes things work better. And you're like, but 6 months ago, you were like, everything's fine with all these people working from home. And now all of a sudden everybody needs to be there at least 4 days a week. It doesn't make any sense. And so at the time, I was in human resources. I am doing research on this, looking at, okay, what's happening, across, well, globally and also locally in the US, what's happening as far as this trend. And so, okay, yeah, this seems to be the trend. People are moving back toward this in-office environment thing, but why? And so it was like this question, and literally that's me. My husband laughs at me because I ask questions. That's what I do all the time. And sometimes he's just like, why do you keep asking so many questions? I'm like, because I want to know the answers. So we're just going to keep asking questions. And of course, it's this big question for me. Like, I don't understand. Why are we doing this? Why is this trend happening? What's happening? And then it was so funny because it was like this light bulb moment when I started hearing about this whole new paradigm thing and sort of the what we're transitioning from to what we're transitioning to, it started making all the sense. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is it. It's this power struggle that's going to happen over the next few years. It's like this global scale of people resist change.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's on this global level, people, meaning organizations and these structures, are resisting this change because it's no longer going to be this way. And so there's this whole group of people, group of organizations that understand and that see the way things are shifting. And people naturally, like we've talked about, we are feeling it. We're starting to feel it, and it's really starting to speed up and get louder, right? It's this whole thing. I mean, it's what you and I see in our businesses. There are people who are just waking up to this idea that they need to figure out what is best for them and what their true path in life is. And it's just becoming louder and louder and louder. It's like this push and pull that I think we're going to see. And it makes total sense to me now that, of course, these organizations and these large structures that have been put into place over how many years are going to resist it, because they're all run by humans and humans resist change. So it's going to be
Yeah.
this power struggle.
It's so right. And that's exactly it, because then, in my own experience, that's exactly what I see is it's a power struggle. It's about control. They want to keep control. But to your point about us waking up as individuals, right? Kind of like what happened to both of us, what got us here
Mhm.
and sharing this space is exactly that. I walk in there and I see that there are people who are, I still see, it's funny because the word that I would use is like robots, right? It's like that's what I'm seeing. There are the people who are just doing it and don't question it.
Yeah,
They're
they're just following their programming.
Yes, yes, just complete programming. And then there are a couple people, the cubicle next to me. I don't know her well, but I can tell she's waking up. I pinpointed, she said a couple of things, and I was like, she's waking up to it. And I think that's what part of a lot of people like us who are in this business of helping people wake up and holding people's hands through waking up and just making sure that people are aware, like, hey, it's about you, and feel you. There is a you there. All of this is not what it is. It's you get to decide how you get to look at it. And I realize that that is part of the job. At least for me, I feel like this is part of my purpose is going back and waking the others up. Like, hey, I woke up and now I'm gonna sit here next to you in this cubicle and I'm gonna do the same thing, kind of like that girl next to me in the cubicle is doing, is saying the things that make other people think. The things that she says make other people in the office stop and think. And while she's not fully woke because she's getting there, she's on her journey there. I feel like that is part of what's happening is we're helping other people in that corporate environment wake up, because ultimately we're going to make that organization wake up, and you're either going to you're going to shift into the new paradigm with us, or you're going to stay behind because you've had 20, 50, however many years of success, but it's just not working that way anymore. And you being in HR, probably have a lot more awareness and experience of this. There are a million rules in place, there are a million processes in place. And they work well. They work well for the organization to run the way that it used to when it was about only the organization.
Yeah, that's what it's shifting. And that's where you're seeing some of these larger businesses who are not able to shift and change with the times. They're feeling it.
Yeah.
It's not working like it used to. I worked at a huge, huge university, and it was so apparent in my last couple of years there. Enrollment was down, like across the board. And people weren't following that same path. Everybody wasn't like, oh, this is the way we have to do it. We have to go to school, get good grades, go to college, and graduate and get a good job. People are starting to see that that is not the only path for you. And so it's being felt. It's being felt by these universities and these colleges because people are not enrolling like they used to. It's not like, oh, we have to turn people away because we have so many people trying to run and get in. These giant organizations that have been trying to keep working the same way they always have. And even if they are trying to make shifts, these giant organizations, it takes a lot of time to make those shifts, right? It's not immediate. And so they're very slow and they can't catch up. They can't keep up with all of the changes that are happening. They're starting to kind of sound the alarms and they're starting to go into this like crisis mode of what are we going to do? Because the environment seems to be changing and we don't know how to keep up with it. I think that that's what we're going to see is those organizations who aren't able to keep up with it, who aren't making the shifts and making the changes. They're not going to be as successful as they were. They're going to feel it. They're going to see it. And so eventually it's like you either get on board and you follow the new rules or you just don't. You don't have that success that you used to have. I think that's what we're going to start to see. But I think the other thing that I wanted to point out is that we still need structure, right? We still need something. We still need these systems that we've built over the last hundreds of years. And so things will remain in place. Like it's not like it's going to be this lawless, no rule society, right? Where it's all about the individual. We're still going to have rules and structure in place to help guide us as a collective. It's just that the ones that don't make sense for this new paradigm are going to fall off.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's our responsibility as individuals to speak out about the things that don't make sense. Because as a collective, what doesn't make sense to us? You know, spending 3 hours driving a day doesn't make sense because you're not doing anything productive and it's the quality of your work is not going to change. Your ability to do your work is not going to change. So I do think that as we come into this new paradigm, I know for myself, it is our responsibility to speak up. And it's not that we have to go and, you know, throw a fit in HR. That's not it. But when you're asked for feedback, or you can just give the feedback like I plan to, like, hey, this doesn't work and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It actually makes me feel less appreciated as an employee. It makes me feel less seen because it's all about only the needs of the law firm, for example, whatever organization, and not about my needs whatsoever. And so I do 100% agree with you. And to speaking of colleges, it's funny that you said that colleges and universities, because one of the Ivy Leagues a few years ago, I noticed this. And now when you said that it clicked, I was like, they're catching on. And I obviously wasn't aware until this moment, but one of the Ivy Leagues, and I don't know, maybe others have done it too, but I noticed this one a lot because my daughter says she wants to go there. They have created an extension school, an online extension school. And I was like, doesn't that take away from their prestige? You know, is what I initially thought. But as you're saying that, it's them actually moving into the new paradigm, is them actually being aware that in order for them to educate some of the most educated people or the best educated people coming out of this Ivy League school, they don't need to sit in the same classroom and do it. Like they don't need to. Is there value in that in certain situations? Absolutely. I absolutely believe that there is in certain situations. But does everybody need to go every night to this class and sit there with 200 other people where the professor doesn't even know your name? No. You know, and I think it's the same for workplaces. I think we need to speak up as to what doesn't make sense because it is our responsibility, I think, as individuals. And even for those of us who have not awoken and who do not fully understand what is happening, I think it is our responsibility to go into HR and say, yeah, no, it doesn't make sense that I drive 3 hours a day and I have to spend 3 hours of my 3 of the 8 hours that I work of pay for gas, tolls, and getting here. Like it just doesn't make sense. I agree with you so much, and I see it as you're saying it and putting it into those words. I totally see it, and I'm also living it right now. And I believe that's part of the journey is, hey, I have the knowledge. I know what's happening. I can see it. Let's go back and get the others. Let's help them.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next time.